Hi, this is Jitesh Satyan, WhatsApp number +919656611829. Today's talk, we'll start with the third story narrated by the sage. Story 3, Slaying of Shumbha and Nishumbha. Two Asuras, Shumbha and Nishumbha, were wreaking havoc in the three worlds. The demigods prayed to the goddess for help. Okay, now let's come to the analysis of the third story from the sage. Considering the aspirant has understood, practiced, and overcome Tamas Pradhana Prakriti obstruction as well as Rajas Pradhana Prakriti obstruction, the third story takes up Sattva Pradhana Prakriti for discussion. The assumption here is that Atmajnanam has been achieved by overcoming ignorance or avidya. So, the aspirant is assumed to have a high level of sattva. Hence, he has knowledge or experience of individual self as the witness within, but still identifies himself with Jivatma and does not realize he is Paramatma, which being the primary difference between Atmajnanam and Brahmajnanam. So the identification of I and mine still exists as the individual self, even though the person can focus his mind and experience the bliss of Atmajnana or the self. Still, the cosmic identity is not complete. The goal here is to identify with the universal cosmic supreme consciousness or Brahmajnana. The story starts with two asuras, Shumbha and Nishumbha, wreaking havoc in the three worlds. Shumbha in Sanskrit means bringing forth shining, and Nishumbha means absence of shining. Shumbha is the lustrous self knowledge or pride from the knowledge, siddhis and other skills got as a result of Atmajnana, and Nishumbha is the lack of complete knowledge of Brahman, which is the non-lustrous part. This is a result of Sattva Pradhana Prakriti and its negative attribute of Maya. The meaning of the three worlds and Asuras wreaking havoc in the three worlds is already discussed in the last story itself. So, having overcome the influence of two other gunas, Rajas Pradhana Prakriti and Tamas Pradhana Prakriti, now the influence of the third guna, Sattva, is to be overcome by the aspirant. So, the demigods pray to the goddess for help, or the aspirant continues the goddess Upasana as prescribed by the Guru to overcome his obstruction and attain Brahmajnana. Goddess Parvati, spouse of Shiva, the god of destruction, listening to the prayers of the demigods, asked the demigods to clarify who was being praised in the prayers. Immediately, a very beautiful goddess sprung out from Parvati and informed Parvati that the demigods were praying for her help to kill Shumbha and Nishumbha. The beautiful form that sprung out from Parvati was called Kaushiki, and Parvati, whose color changed to black when Kaushiki sprung out from her, was called Kalika. Okay. Coming to the analysis, Kaushiki is derived from the Sanskrit term Kosha, meaning sheath. Here, the name Kaushiki means the sheath of Parvati, while Kalika means the black Kali form, which is the black form that remains when the beautiful sheath is removed. The story here is introducing the further subdivision involved in Sattva Pradhana Prakriti and its negative aspect as Maya. Maya is classified into Shuddha Maya and Malina Maya. Shuddha Maya as in pure Maya and Malina Maya as in impure illusion. Shuddha Maya is the pure Sattva part of Sattva Pradhana Prakriti, while Malinamaya is the leftover Sattva, Rajas and Tamas when pure Sattva is removed from Sattva Pradhana Prakriti. The reason for this subdivision is to show that the leftover Rajas and Tamas generates vanity even in self-realized aspirants, which is to be eliminated before the dawn of Brahmajnana. This is further clarified in the killing of the Asuras in this story. As mentioned earlier several times, there is an obstructing power leading to ignorance and a revealing power relating to knowledge in Prakriti itself. Both being same from Prakriti point of view but appearing as two separate states due to the aspirant. Just like consciousness of the aspirant is neither having jnana or ajnana. Consciousness is neither ignorant nor associated to knowledge. Self is not created, it's only realized. The duality in state is only a result of Maya. Even Kali, the darkness of Samhara, and Shodashi, the beauty of Srishti, are the same from Bindu perspective. If you look at the Bindu as the origin of everything, then it is Shodashi. And if you look at Bindu as the end of destruction of everything, then it is Kali. This was explained to ensure that there is no confusion on interpreting Maya as good or bad. Two servants of Shumbha and Nishumbha, called Chanda and Munda, happened to see the beautiful Parvati. They informed their masters on the beauty of Parvati and said it is definitely a gem that Shumbha and Nishumbha should possess. Shumbha immediately asked his messenger Sugriva to meet Parvati and request her to marry either him or his brother Nishumbha. The messenger went to Parvati and informed her on the request from Shumbha and Nishumbha, who were now rulers of the three worlds. The goddess told the messengers that she had taken a vow earlier that she will only marry someone who defeats her in the battle. Hence, she will be able to accept the request from Shumbha only if he or his brother can defeat her. Okay. Now coming to the analysis part. Two characters are introduced first in this part of the story, Chanda and Munda, who happen to see the beauty of the goddess and want their master to possess her. Chanda in Sanskrit means fierce or passionate, while Munda in Sanskrit means shaved, blunt, or pointless. It presents two characteristics of vanity in an aspirant who has overcome avidya. The aspirant here is passionate about defending his point of view, which is anyway pointless, as a complete understanding is missing in the arguments or the point of view of the aspirant. Some authors have associated Munda, which means shaved, to associate the meaning to a sannyasi who is having vanity. In both these kind of interpretations, the message of Chanda, passionate, and Munda, pointless, remains the same as representations of vanity in an aspirant who has gained knowledge or overcome avidya. Again, the same vanity of aspirant is what causes him to consider the I and mine attribute in him or her, which prevents the person from getting the knowledge of supreme consciousness or Brahmajnana. So Chanda and Munda do not want the goddess, but wants their masters Shumbha and Nishumbha to possess her. So the I and mine feeling of Shumbha and Nishumbha comes out as their servants in Chanda and Munda as passionate and pointless arguments resulting from vanity. Shumba and Nishumbha send their messenger Sugriva to Parvati. However, Parvati says she will marry only the person who can defeat her. Sugriva in Sanskrit means a hero or divine being. It is not a negative quality, but the positive progress that the aspirant has acquired so far, making an attempt to also acquire the ultimate knowledge for the master. Parvati, as Sattva Pradhana Prakriti, is not willing to remove the avarana or illusion of Maya and reveal the ultimate knowledge unless all negative tendencies are eliminated or defeated in fight using spiritual practices. Shumbha was extremely angry when the messenger informed him on the response from Devi that the goddess will only marry someone who is able to fight and defeat her in war. Shumbha summoned his general Dhumralochana and asked him to forcefully bring Parvati. Dhumralochana, along with his army, went to Parvati. The general charged forward to fight Parvati, but the goddess reduced the Asura to ashes by uttering the word Hum. Let's look into the analysis. So we start with the elimination of the Asuras, starting with Dhumralochana as the first general to attack Parvati. Dhumralochana in Sanskrit means smoky vision or obscured vision. The reference here is to the fog of negativity or the fog of doubt that accompanies the vanity of the aspirant, that something still remains to be achieved in the spiritual front even after Atmajnana or knowledge as a witness. Dhumralochana is reduced to ashes when the goddess says Hum. Here, the reader is introduced to the mantra bija or seed word Hum. Hum bija, where the vowel pronunciation is short, is a Shiva bija relating to god of destruction. And with long vowel, it is a Shakti bija relating to the goddess. The mantra bija is said to have the power of transformation to destroy negativity and kindle the fire of supreme consciousness. Fire being an element that can destroy impurities without itself becoming impure in the process of destroying the impurity, also has the mantra bija associated to Hum. The system of burning bodies on death in Hinduism is based on the same principle that other elements become impure when trying to eliminate impurities, while fire can completely eliminate impurity without getting impure. Hum is called Krodha bija or sound of wrath and associated to opening of the spiritual eye or the third eye. In the context of this story, Hum eliminates negativity or doubts or reduces Dhumralochana in the aspirant to ashes. Now, this does not mean that the significance here is only to the use of the word Hum from a tantric perspective. It also has significance from other paths for attaining liberation. So the message here is the use of words for eliminating Dhumralochana, which we will discuss in detail in the next talk. Today's talk is on the significance of the unique way of killing that the goddess adopted using utterance of word in killing of Dhumralochana or obscured vision. Okay. So based on Hindu scriptures, the avarana obstruction from Maya can be removed using Shravana, listening to the Guru, Manana, reflecting on the instructions, and Nidhyasana, which is meditating or practicing, which leads to experience of Samadhi, which could be attained using Bhakti Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Tantric practice or any other path. Since the tantric method is with mantra, is whom is explicitly called out in the story, let us also try to look at the alternate options in terms of giving an example on the power of words from Guru in Jnana Yoga. So, in order to set the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam principle, or you are Shiva, or non dualistic perspective, the truth is revealed by Guru using the words like Tattvamasi, or you are that, or a similar sentence, signifying the meaning that you are pure consciousness and as well as the supreme consciousness, and both are the same. When this is conveyed by the Guru, there are several doubts an aspirant will have at this stage. An important one is the transition to Nirguna God, or the God without attributes, while in the previous stage, to overcome Viksheba or tossing of the mind, all spiritual practices or upasana techniques introduced something to focus on, which could be a deity or a god with attributes, a word, or some other point of focus. However, here the guru or teacher is matching the true self or pure consciousness to supreme consciousness without attributes. So the aspirant is confused on how God can be with attributes in previous stage and now without attributes, which are self-contradicting. For the aspirant to progress, the teacher has to clear all doubts so that when the aspirant meditates for ultimate knowledge, he or she is without any doubts, as in Dhumra Lojana, obstructed vision, or faulty vision, or smoky vision. The answer to the above question is handled by introducing different planes of reality. Just like you see a mirage of water in a scorching desert, or you see bright images in a dream when you are actually sleeping in a dark room. Similarly, there are different planes for the spiritual progress. So, in a stage where Viksheba or tossing of mind occurs, it is important to have a point or something to focus on, to have a god with form, while in an advanced stage where the aspirant has realized his Atman or true self as the witness principle, he or she can experience a higher state of reality associated to God without form and attributes, or the supreme consciousness. While the concept of God with and without attribute is somewhat clear, the other question might be what is self realization? Is it Atmajnana? And how is it different from Brahmajnana from an experience perspective? If self realization or Atmajnana is when the mind is completely focused, you realize your true self as a witness, the witnessing principle. In liberation or Brahmajnana, even the witness disappears and the oneness of Atma with Brahman is experienced. Since Atman is also Brahman, the terms Atmajnana and Brahmajnana only corresponds to two states in the progress of an aspirant. But in principle, as Atma and Brahma are the same, Atmajnana and Brahmajnana can also be equated to be the same. This being just two stages in the spiritual progress. We'll continue with the third story narrated by the sage. Story 3, Slaying of Shumbha and Nishumbha. When news of Dhumra Lojana's death reached Shumbha, the Asura king asked two other ferocious Asuras named Chanda and Munda to ride with their troops and bring Parvati. Chanda and Munda, along with their army, reached the mountain peak, which was the abode of Parvati. When the goddess saw the army marching towards her, she became very angry. Kali emerged in her dark form from Parvati and started fighting the Asuras. Kali cut off the head of Chanda and Munda and killed many in the Asura army. Seeing Chanda and Munda destroyed, the rest of their army fled in panic. Kali then brought the head of Chanda and Munda to Parvati. Kali informed Parvati that she had eliminated Chanda and Munda, while Shumba and Nishumba she is leaving for Parvati to eliminate. Shumba's army now encircled Parvati, also referred to in the story as Ambika, Chandiga, and Durga, and they started fighting the goddess. The goddess of various gods and demigods then came in to assist Chandiga and Kali in the war. Okay. Now getting into the analysis. Shumba sends Chanda and Munda to capture the goddess. In a previous talk, we clarified the meaning of terms Chanda and Munda to mean the vanity of the aspirant, showing up as passion or anger, which is Rajas dominated negative tendencies resulting from vanity. There was also a classification introduced of two types of Maya, the pure Sattva, and what remains as Malina Maya, which is a combination of three gunas. And we saw is how this was corresponding to goddess Kali when the pure Sattva was removed. So in the story, Kali again emerges from Parvati to slay Chanda and Munda. The negative tendencies arising from vanity in the aspirant, dominated by Rajas, are destroyed by Kali or her Upasana. Kali then informs Parvati that the negative tendencies with Rajas dominance has been eliminated. The Sattva dominant Shumbha and Nishumba relating to I is still left to be eliminated. So I and mind is what still remains even after the vanity of the aspirant is destroyed. Next, Shumbha's army encircles Parvati and Kali, and the goddess of various gods and demigods then come to assist Chandiga and Kali in the war. The stage is now set for final liberation from cycle of birth and death or moksha for the aspirant, and his entire body and spirit is focusing on this ultimate goal. In Hindu scriptures, every part of the person has a deity associated to that part, whether it is a gross body, subtle body, or the causal body. The reference here to all goddess forms supporting in the war corresponds to the aspirant completely engaged in the attempt to realize his true self. Atma Brahma Aikyam. Atmajnana to Brahmajnana. As the war continued, the goddess attacked the Asura called Raktabija. From each drop of blood that fell out of Raktabija into the battlefield, another Asura like him emerged. With powerful attack from the goddess on Raktabija, thousands of Raktabijas started appearing in the battlefield. Now Chandiga asked Kali to drink any blood that drops from Raktabija, so that he will soon drain all his blood and new Raktabijas will not get created. With Chandiga striking all the Raktabijas in the battlefield and Chamundi or Kali drinking the blood, they together eliminated Raktabija. Now going into analysis. As the war continues, the goddess now attacks the Asura called Raktabija, and we get into details which says that for every drop of blood from Raktabija in the battlefield, another demon like him emerged. So Raktabija has the term Raktabija has two parts, Rakta meaning blood and Bija meaning seed. The term seed or Bija in scriptures corresponds to creation, a root, origin, or manifestation or invoking. And blood is used for life or materialistic existence. Rakta Bija refers to the seed of materialistic existence, and the meaning is clarified in the Sukta popularly called Hymn of Creation in Rig Veda, which mentions that desire is the primal seed of existence originating from the mind. The same message of desire as the primal seed also comes up in Atharva Veda. If we look at the symbolization of color red, the reference is to kama or desire and to rajo guna, which is the fuel for desire. The same meaning comes from a method of disqualification as well. To remove mala, the aspirant performs karma without thinking of results. So Raktabija cannot be karma that multiplies from actions. To remove Vikshepa, the aspirant will focus the mind and avoid tossing with thoughts. So Raktabija cannot be thoughts that flood as the aspirant has overcome this stage. The impurity of I and mind corresponding to Shumbha and Nishumba. I and mind is accompanied by the seed of desire called the primal seed in Rig Veda, which keeps multiplying when one desire is killed or satisfied. So even if one desire is satisfied, another desire will arise. Or from a desire, multiple desires gets created. So all the goddess or the aspirant as a whole tries to overcome desire, but killing each one creates thousand more that are equally strong as the one that is killed. When desire still exists in the aspirant, he or she is not free from the negative effects of desire. So desire is to be drained, and in the war, Kali, who has been eliminating Rajas dominant negative obstacles of the aspirant, comes to the rescue to drain the blood of Raktabija or drain him of desires. While pure sattva or knowledge symbolized by Chandika keeps striking until Raktabija is dead. So both Chandika and Chamundi together eliminate Raktabija. Um, Finally, we see Chamundi starts fighting Shumbha and Nishumbha. She first kills Nishumbha. This angered Shumbha and he told Chamundi that there is no reason she should be proud of the victory she had so far, and it was made possible due to the different goddesses assisting her in the war. Chamundi then clarifies that all the goddess forms in the battlefield are her manifestations, and saying that she absorbed all the other goddesses into herself. A fierce battle followed between Shumbha and Parvati, in which the goddess finally killed Shumbha. The skies cleared and peace was established in the three worlds. Okay. Going into analysis. So finally, pure sattva fights based on a specific spiritual practice, whatever the aspirant is following, to reveal the Brahmajnana, that the aspirant's consciousness and the cosmic consciousness are the same. First, Shumbha is laid, which is the dawn of knowledge or killing of ignorance associated to Brahmajnana, incorrect perception of I and mind. Ignorance which is not lustrous and symbolized with Nishumbha. The pride in the aspirant makes a final stand to claim the multiplicity, plurality, or duality, that everything is separate as the various forms of the goddess. The goddess withdraws all her forms into herself and shows that there is only one Prakriti, and microcosm and macrocosm are the same from consciousness perspective. As sun gets reflected in different containers but still is one entity. This completes the sharing of absolute knowledge, that there is no Dvaita, only Advaita. The Supreme Consciousness pervades everything. This equates to the philosophy of as above, so below, or microcosm at individual level mirrors macrocosm at cosmic level. Brahmanda Pindanda. The final stage is the experience of bliss gained from the knowledge or from the practice that leads to complete self-realization. This liberation kills the pseudo-understanding that was shining as Shumbha. The third story ends with the skies cleared and peace established in the three worlds, which shows the state of the aspirant enjoying the spiritual peace or ananda that transcends understanding. Thanks for listening.